Hello, Art 1 students. This presentation is to briefly go over the expectations for the narrative drawing project, just to make sure that everybody knows and we are all on the same page. First of all, the narrative drawing is going to be a drawing that tells a story. You can draw whatever you want as long as it includes these things. First, it needs to have some sort of action. That means something's happening. Second, you need to have something in the foreground. That means that it's up close to us, like this tree. Next, you need to have something in the middle ground. That means that something that's a little bit further away than the things that are in the front. And then something needs to be going on, or at least be seen, way off into the background. If all of the things that are in your drawing are happening all in a line next to each other, then that shows me that you are not including foreground, middle ground, and background, because nothing is closer to us or further away. Here's our timeline. The thumbnail sketches, that already happened. Most of you turned that in on Tuesday or maybe Wednesday this week. The next thing that you're moving on to, right after you're done with the thumbnail sketches, is to start your rough draft drawing. The rough draft drawing is going to be the step that most of you are starting right now. That rough draft is no color, but lots of detail, on a full sheet of printer paper instead of folded in half. Once you're finished with the rough draft, that'll be due on Tuesday next week. And then as soon as you're finished with that, you'll be moving on to the final drawing. The final drawing is going to be done on that nice big white paper that hopefully you picked up from the school. It needs to be completely colored in with colored pencils, and the drawing that you do on that paper needs to have a lot of detail. The paper itself needs to be taken care of. That's part of your grade for this assignment, is to make sure that the paper is not torn or crumpled and that you don't have little folded corners and stuff like that. The final drawing is going to be something that we spend a lot of time on, and I will go over more about coloring later. Remember, you want to have something going on in the picture. It could be that, like the first picture, you can see that something did happen, and we are at the end of the thing that happened, looking and wondering, what just happened? But in the second image here, you can see that something's about to happen, that maybe this horse and rider are in the middle of an action instead of at the end of it. Here you can see that the first example shows us some good foreground, middle ground, and background. We have something happening close to us, things going on in the middle, and then other things way off into the distance, so that everything's not all in a line. In the second example over here, this ancient Greek vase, all of the figures are on a line. And you have one thing next to another thing, next to another thing, next to another thing. Nothing's overlapping. Nothing is closer to us or further away. For this narrative drawing, you want yours to be more like the first one, where you have things that are close and things that are far. Otherwise, you end up with all of the parts of your drawing all in a line, with no overlapping, everything next to each other. This is something that you did when you were little. This was the way you drew. Now I'm trying to teach you how to draw in a way that's more sophisticated, showing overlapping and near and far. This is exactly how I'm going to grade your project. First, I'm going to look at it and say, what about the narrative action? Does it have something going on? If you did a great job, you're going to get a lot of points. If you did a pretty good job, you'll get less points. And if you didn't do a very good job, you won't get very many points at all for the narrative action part. Same thing for creation of space. That means near and far. Did you do a great job, an okay job, or a terrible job? And then your use of color. Great job, not so great, terrible. And then last is craftsmanship. That has to do with, did you keep the paper nice? Does it have smudges and scratches all over it? If you really kept it nice, you'll get a lot of points. Or kind of nice, or terrible. It's up to you. Make sure you take your time so you can get these craftsmanship points. Remember, these are the things that you need to have in your drawing somewhere. Since most of you are done with your thumbnail sketches and you're ready to move on to the rough draft drawing, what I'm going to do now at the end of this presentation is to go over how you should start your rough draft. Hello. When you're ready to start your rough draft for our narrative drawing, you'll probably want to have your thumbnail sketches available to look at. Now, your thumbnail sketches were done on a half sheet of paper because we folded it in half. You came up with 2 ideas, and now you're going to need to move on to the next step. My example, I drew 2 drawings of the same scene. So now I have some choices that I need to make. I have to think about it. What am I going to keep and what am I going to change when I move on to my rough draft? Most of my classes yesterday that I asked preferred this drawing. They thought this one told a more interesting story, so I'm going to go with this one. When you're ready to move on to the rough draft, you'll need a new sheet of paper. Yes, we are drawing it again. A lot of what we do in this class is going to be working on a project, drawing it, redrawing it, adding things, changing things, drawing it again until you come up with a really nice idea. Because once you start drawing it, you might realize that there are things that you want to change. So I have a new sheet of paper. This is a piece of printer paper, and I'm going to fill the whole thing. So now our drawing is getting a little bit bigger. When you're drawing on the rough draft, we want to have a lot of detail, but we're not coloring yet. So I'm going to start by looking at this and deciding what do I want to keep and what do I want to change. Because your rough draft does not have to look exactly like that thumbnail sketch did, but this is helpful to figure out where to place things. So I'm going to start with my wall and my space. If you are drawing like this, it is really easy to accidentally make super dark lines. If you scoot back on your pencil, that's going to help you to make lighter lines because it's just harder to press hard when your pencil is held further back. So to start with, I'm going to hold my pencil far back and I'm going to lightly go in and I'm going to put my wall. I have a diagonal line here, a vertical line here, and another diagonal line going that way. And that's going to be the corner of my room. And then I have my cat in the foreground is huge. He takes up almost half the drawing. And so I'm going to lightly put him in there as well. And then I'm going to figure out how far he's going to go off the edge of the page, because you guys know that going off the edge of the page just helps your drawings to look more nice. So lightly going in and setting up where everything's going to be. Because if I realize that I don't actually like the way that's going, it's really easy to erase the parts that you've drawn lightly and make some changes and tweak things. That's what this rough draft is all about. I am posting this video on Thursday, and so that means that if you're starting your rough draft, like I've been, that you still have today, Friday, and the entire 3-day weekend to work on it. Because remember our timeline? This rough draft drawing isn't due until next week on Tuesday. Take your time. I've been working on this for about, I would say, 30 minutes now, and it still looks a whole lot like my thumbnail sketch. And so if you're starting out lightly and you're starting out by putting your shapes in, that's the way you want to go. So I'm figuring out what kind of things I want to put on the walls in the house and what kind of things I want to have in the big empty spaces. There's an empty space here and I don't want it to be so empty. So I think I might put like a cat toy or something because that kind of goes along with the story. And so add details, overlap, go off the edge of the page, and then slowly your picture will start to form. If you are finishing this rough draft sketch in 5 minutes, then your grade for it is probably going to be pretty poor. If you are taking your time on it, this should take you a couple days to work on, a little bit at a time each day, so that you'll have a good grade on the craftsmanship part of your grade. This rough draft sketch is due on Tuesday, and I'm going to be looking at the same things as the final. I'm going to be looking at craftsmanship. Did you take your time? Do you have things that are close up and things that are far away? Did you show me any overlapping? And is there something going on in the picture? I will continue working on this and join in on my Zoom meetings, and you'll be able to see me as I slowly add a little bit more to it every day.